Welcome back to the Bad Beat Podcast. I am your host, Robert Eisenstadt. Today we have somebody very near and dear to me. He is a personal coach to me, a personal mentor, business coach, Matt Clark. He is a mindset coach with experience as a NASCAR championship pit crew coach for drivers such as Jeff Gordon and Jimmy Johnson. And we have him today to talk about imposter syndrome and a little bit of mindset stuff. So, Matt, thank you for joining me today. I appreciate you taking some time out of your business trip to handle this podcast with me, man.
Well, I've seen it. Now I see it live. Robert, thanks for having me. We're always on calls, and I've seen your studio. It's awesome to be here live.
Yeah, man. I appreciate it. So we're going to jump right into it. The biggest thing I really want to talk about is imposter syndrome, how to overcome it. But what is imposter syndrome?
Imposter syndrome really boils down to this one core feeling or one core belief that you're not enough. And that really translates, and I'll use my own experience. I spent a lot of years in NASCAR. And because of my background, I didn't feel like I belonged. I only played community college baseball. I coached at a small Division III college, and all of a sudden, boom, at the top level, coaching pit crews, Jeff Gordon, Jimmy Johnson. And I worked hard to get there. I'm a hands-on learner. I'm an athlete, all of those things. But there's still something in the back of my brain that was like, hey, you don't belong here. You're not enough. And I just felt like I was an imposter, and I was going to be discovered as not being enough. And that, for 15 years of my NASCAR career, followed me, Robert.
Really?
Yes.
So, I mean, this entire career, you're going through this entire amazing opportunity, and you just feel like you don't belong?
What's interesting, right? So, and I'm going to be a little bit humble bragging here. I had a career that most folks who are NASCAR fans would kill for.
Right.
Multiple championships, pit crew championships award. I met the who's who, traveled across the nation. It's just a crazy journey that I was on, having great success, but still feeling like I didn't belong. And that's kind of the unique part of imposter syndrome. You can have outward success, but inwardly you're like, wow, what's happening? I don't really believe that I belong. I don't believe that I'm enough. So I struggled with that for 15 years. And despite all the success, it was still kind of running in the background subconsciously all during my career.
And now?
I have overcome imposter syndrome, and I did it because I got tired of being self-sabotaged. And without going deep into it, but I had, after doing some deep work and discovery, and we'll talk about that in a minute, but what I had done is, as I was reading a book, a line jumped out from me. It was called Quantum Success. And what I had done is confused my desire for beliefs. So I had this desire to be the next, to do the thing, to be the achiever, whatever it was. But I didn't have the belief system that supported that. And so subconsciously, it's so much powerful. Your subconscious is so much powerful. It would sabotage, either through procrastination or failure to launch, perfection. You would always find a reason. Like, I have notebooks full of ideas and things I'm going to do, things I'm going to be, and I'm going to change the world. And yet I'm like kind of still where I am. Now, folks would say, Matt, it's kind of weird. You had an unbelievable career, multiple championships. You traveled the nation. I got a box full of rings. I made great living. I did live TV on Fox Sports. Like, it's a dream career, right?
Right.
But still, it's not. There's more for me. And I'm evolving. But during that time, you just feel like, hey, you're successful. But this is running this undercurrent. Like, I'm not enough. I'm going to be discovered for being this average high school baseball player from small-time experience. Now I'm at the big time. And it just always haunted me.
Do you think it was more so, well, not more, but like, when you're saying that, the first thing that popped in my head was like, okay, maybe you had like a different purpose and your mind was subconsciously trying to tell you like, hey, you have a purpose to do what you're doing now. You're helping so many other people versus being so, not strapped in, but so developed into just NASCAR, because now I feel like you're in a position where you're helping people change their lives.
Yeah, and so a lot of that is transferable. Coming out of NASCAR has helped me. It gave me a framework, a foundation that I probably wouldn't have gotten any other way. But I was a baseball guy at heart, and I wanted to play Division I baseball. In my heart of hearts, I wanted to play for the New York Yankees. I lived about an hour and a half, about an hour and 45 minutes from the stadium. Grew up a big-time Yankees fan. Struggled offensively. Great defensive player, but offensively couldn't get it figured out. When I look at pictures now, I'm like, oh, man, you were way out on your front foot. Why didn't someone correct you? And I just had this conversation at my brother's house the other day. Man, if I would have corrected that, because I was a good ball player,
Yeah,
no doubt. If I would have corrected that and actually settled into hit for power, hit for average, the trajectory of my life would have been different, because I would have went on to play Division II, Division I baseball. There's no question in my mind, but I couldn't get that fixed. I'm glad I didn't now in hindsight, because I love where I'm at. Now, it was a journey, and I loved my time at NASCAR during my career there, but I love what I'm doing now. And walking through this and unpacking my own belief system, I am on a mission to help people overcome belief systems that don't serve them well. So to kind of answer your question or get to your point, yes, like, I don't know if it was subconscious, but I am a firm believer that I am on the path that I'm supposed to be on, but I am also super intentional about the path to where I want to go now.
Was there a defining moment of when you realized like what imposter syndrome was? You were like, I'm assuming there was a time where you were like, why can't I just believe that I'm supposed to be here? Like where were those? Did you have those conversations with yourself?
Let me set this up. The backstory is I was going through this. So I'm always about learning. And I'm in a mastermind group, and one of my peers in the mastermind group is in this mindset, science, neuroscience space. And he was writing a course curriculum for his platform. And he's like, hey, I'm offering it to our mastermind group for a reduced price. Spend the weekend with me. We'll go through this. Help me vet it. Part of the process on the second day is he said, I want you to go back and see if there's any experiences that you've gone through that may have impacted how you believe, et cetera. And I recalled an incident in high school, being pitch hit for, and it came to my memory like that. It was like, whoa. And he just was really calm, and the music was playing, so it was almost a deep meditative, not hypnotic, but that very slow theta brainwave kind of getting into that mood. And I went back and I had a conversation with my high school self, my high school baseball player self, on the field of dreams in my mind. And I put my arm around him, and I still get emotional about it. I said, Matt, listen, you're not defined by this. This is not who you are. You had a wrong interpretation of the event that happened. And I actually had that conversation on the field of dreams in my mind and walked into the field of corn. When I came out of that, I couldn't even talk. It was so deeply emotional. What's interesting is this imposter syndrome would run very quietly and subtly in the background, but I never shared it with anybody. It was just like, okay, it's just part of like, hey, you're just grinding, you're doing the thing. And I shared this experience with my wife not long ago, months ago, 6 months ago, within the year, and she was in tears. She's like, I had no idea that you were going through this for the last 20 years.
That's crazy.
I'm like, who do you share it with? Because, again, the tells, you would be like, hey, I don't feel like I belong. Or I would say a lot, I don't feel like I've accomplished anything. I would see other people doing things, and I'd be like, they're crushing it. And I would always minimize and downplay when someone said, Matt, amazing career, great job. Right place, right time. And I began to understand that those were basic symptoms of imposter syndrome, where you're just not willing to take a compliment, you're deflecting. And I never embraced myself as a champion. And I got to give credit to one of my coaches, Coach Kedma, who is in the coaching program. Robert, you know her. But she is also my personal coach. And a couple of years back, we were doing some branding stuff and working on my own personal brand. And she's like, Matt, I don't think you're embracing your experiences in NASCAR. I'm like, yeah, I think it's corny, turning left. I mean, I love the competition and it's high performance, but I don't think people see it as valuable. I don't see it as valuable. She's like, Matt, by you not embracing your experience, it's a slap in the face to God.
Wow.
I was like, whoa. And I was like, okay, I'm going to take that to heart. She goes, if you don't embrace it, I'm going to put you in the hot seat with God. And that's kind of our inside thing. If you ever see Coach Cadmus say, hey, Coach K, tell me about the hot seat with God and Matt, and she'll like immediately go to it.
Really?
But it was a game changer. And it made me say, you know what? I've been on this journey. I need to evaluate and appreciate the opportunities that I have. And then I began to reflect and do some deeper work. And then I had that experience. So it's been a journey, but now I can say with confidence, after doing some deep work, understanding the science behind what was happening in my belief system, like I'm a champion and I am walking more proud in that fact and in my confidence than I ever have before in my life.
Dude, that's amazing. You're killing me right now because now I'm just like resonating and replaying everything in my head, So how do you find yourself being able to dive so deep into yourself? Like I struggled with myself, like trying to find out, that high school kid or trying to find out why I do the things that I do, because, to be honest with you, I am a deflected person. Everything that you're saying is, I feel like you're just you are talking directly to me, but
Right.
you know what I mean? Like you're telling your story and I feel like you're talking directly to me. I mean, it just makes so much sense.
This is where the science helped me understand what was happening. And I began to understand that, I had these desires, but my belief system, which was formed subconsciously, and Robert, most of our beliefs are formed in us by the age of 7, subconsciously. How we view life, relationships, money, how we view the world. And you heard me talk about, brain waves. And I'm not a neuroscientist, but I do a little bit of study. And the brain waves of kids 2 to 7 years old is what? Theta. Most of the time. And theta is that hypnotic meditative state. So when you're in deep meditation or prayer, and going deep within, that's the brainwaves. They're slow brainwaves. And then what it does is it sets those beliefs in the subconscious. So you're a sponge at those years, taking in your belief system. Now, that's not the only way, because events, we could experience one event. My wife was bullied every day on the bus. It is really rooted in her subconscious, and we've done work to get that out, to be aware of that. But our belief systems are rooted in our subconscious, and our subconscious is so much more powerful than our conscious brain. That's why it's hard to make the change.
How do you find out what is actually bothering you if you have no idea, though? Do you recommend like meditation?
Well, I definitely encourage people to meditate.
Yeah.
It's a game changer. It quiets your brain down. It makes you go deep. But I think what we have to understand is you can have beliefs that you want to change and not know the core of them. For me, I wanted to know why I was feeling the way I did. So I like to start with clarity, get clear. And one of the things I encourage people to do is to do a belief or a thought inventory for a week or two. Just write down all the thoughts, the negative voices, the beliefs that you have about yourself. Write them down, journal them. Then ask yourself, where did that come from? Why am I angry? Why am I reacting the way I did? What do I believe about this relationship? What did I learn about this relationship? This is an interesting point, and my son, who I haven't even told this yet, but I am going to sit him down. He's 27 years old, and I'm going to ask him, Cody, I want you to think about some of these subconscious programming that I gave you that isn't serving you well. Because I wasn't always a great dad. Like I had a temper. I was an aggressive kind of dad and demanding, and there's some things that probably impacted him. And we all have those beliefs, and we get them, at a young age, but we also have those beliefs, someone could, like a grade school teacher, high school teacher could say, you're not smart enough. You'll never get algebra. You're never going to pass gym class. You won't amount to anything. And then all of a sudden, you take that as a belief. You let that ruminate. And what happens is we have an event, Then we have an interpretation of that event. Your brain's like, hey, what does this event mean? Then there's a physiological response. There's a flood of neurochemicals that happen in our body, and our brain and our cells start to take notice of that. And then what happens is, if it's strong enough, we form a memory. And then the brain likes patterns. We keep coming back to these memories and we keep revisiting them. What we're trying to do, and this is Candace Pert, Molecules of Emotion, is we keep visiting events to relive the feelings, the emotions.
Why?
Because that's what our brain does. It likes patterns and familiar events. So you can ask yourself, and you've probably run into these customers, you probably run into these people, why are they always angry? They're always trying to find something wrong. And you've seen people that they are not happy, quote unquote, content, unless there's chaos, because their life, their norm has always been chaos. So the subconscious will be like, whoa, things aren't right. We need to stir some stuff up to have chaos for us to feel normal again. And we have to work on reprogramming that. So the new normal is like, okay, I'm placid, I'm calm, I'm not all geeked up. And I worked for a company that husband and wife company that when things got too calm, you could almost be like, okay, they're going to send out a new rule. They're going to send out a memo. They're going to fire someone just to turn the apple cart over to keep it crazy. And they loved living in the crazy part like that. And now I see it as like they were wired to live in chaos. But we get to choose, Robert, how we show up. And that's my mission, is to help people create belief systems that serve them and help them get to the level that they want to get to.
So step one is journaling, I guess you would say, right?
Yeah, self-awareness, just journaling. Just here's the thing, being aware. When I talk mindset, I talk voices, choices, habits. What are the voices in your head? Like, what are the loops that are playing? What are the choices you're making? And what are the choices you're making as far as a growth mindset or a fixed mindset? A growth mindset means that, hey, with work, I can change. A fixed mindset is I have what I have, I am what I am, I'm never going to change. And then what habits are you building around those to reinforce the good thoughts, the positive parts of what you want to be?
So reading or podcasts, or are you talking about like what you're feeding into your brain?
Yeah, always
or putting
monitoring.
situations around in your life?
Yeah, always monitoring the input. You have to be aware, because what goes in eventually comes out. I mean, that is a universal, if you're a person of faith, that's a biblical principle, but that is a universal principle of what goes in is going to come out. Like, and honestly, at the cellular level, without getting too deep, like we are who we are at the cellular level.
Yeah.
So our beliefs are impacting our biology. And we become wired to say, okay, this is the norm. This is what I want. And your cells are craving for that fix. That's what addiction is.
But then why will people be like, okay, I know that I don't want to do this, but they continue to do it anyways?
Because that's willpower. Willpower is finite. That is conscious. Subconsciously, they haven't made the change. And see, therein lies the difference. Like, I can want it, but until I get it into my subconscious, rewire, change the habits, change the physiology, change me at the cellular level, it's hard to make change.
See, I thought like that desire would be that subconscious mind saying like, hey, you need to fix this, right?
Well, that's the gateway, the desire. You have to have a desire to do it, right? So that's the self-awareness. You have to have that desire, like, hey, I want to change this belief about myself. But what are the things that you're doing, right? The inputs, the podcasts, the self-work, the books, the meditation, and you're just constantly trying to rewrite the program, the subconscious programming that you have. And being aware, asking yourselves, where did this belief come from? How does it make me feel? Like, what are my emotions about this belief? Have I been reaching or going after or seeking this feeling, this belief, without even realizing it? And am I willing to change it? Those are the questions that we have to ask ourselves.
And then what? What do you do moving forward?
You have to create the version of the self that you want to be. So if you want to be confident, you have to see yourself as confident, because see, the brain doesn't know the difference between what's real and what's imagined. That's why visualization works. your brain, I do this all the time. I have a playlist in the morning. It's a Champions playlist. I get in a cold shower every morning. I fire up the playlist. After I catch my breath, I'll see myself walking out on stage. Place is bumping to this tune, and I'm getting ready to speak and change lives. Like, I'm visually living that out every morning.
So manifestation.
Exactly. I am creating the life that I want to be. I'm beginning to act, and people are like, oh, that's so woo-woo and voodoo. No. Like, I am telling my brain and my body, this is where we're going. I am being intentional about creating my future. I believe, I'm a spiritual person. I believe that, number one, God is the creator, and He made us as creative beings. We get to create. Like, that is the highest form of spiritual expression, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Is being a creator. So I am creating the intentional future that I want. If I don't, then it creates me. My environment that I'm in creates me.
Yeah, I mean, you're just taking control of your life versus letting the everyday shit take control of you.
Exactly. When I talk to business owners, I talk about culture by design or culture by default. You've probably heard me say that a bunch
numerous times
on our calls. And it's the same thing with our lives. It's our lives by design or by default. And I want my future by design more than ever before in my life. I want to craft the future that I want to be. And I'm thinking about that. I'm preparing for that. I'm living that out. I'm talking in present tense as opposed to, hey, I might, maybe. No, our brain needs specifics. And that's why I was like, hey, I am a speaker. I will be, I will do this. I am this. I am healthy. Those are the ways that we need to talk to ourselves and have those inner conversations.
I agree with you, honestly. I mean, I think there's different forms of manifestation. What do you think the real difference, besides just telling yourself and speaking out loud? Like, do you think dreams and manifestation are two completely different things? Because, in my mind, I'll talk to myself all day long.
Right.
I might look like a crazy person, but I'll tell myself like, hey, this is where we're going, this is what we're doing, but I won't speak like third person out to other people like, oh yeah, I'm a millionaire, nice to meet you.
No, and I get there is a time and a place for everything, right? Because we're trying to figure that out. But in our inner conversations, and even as we're talking, like, I'm a successful business owner. I'm building a successful business. So yeah, we need to be careful. I believe this, that our words are a contract with the universe. So if you say I'm not enough, you're not going to be enough.
How do you move from that though?
What do you mean?
Like somebody that's stuck in this position of just constant belief that they're not getting to where they need to go.
Okay.
I guess
let's evaluate it. Are they blaming their environment? Are they remaining a victim? Are they still staying in the same cycles of thinking? Like, there has to be a desire and an awareness. Doesn't mean it's going to change overnight, but there has to be this awareness that they want to change. And they have to go deep and say, okay, how does subconsciously I change that? I have to take control of my thoughts. I have to take control of my actions. I have to own my inputs, because my outputs are a result of the input. And it can change. It's not easy. But there has to be a true desire. I say to my kids, I say to folks I work with, I can't want it more than you. You have to want change. You have to be tired and sick and tired of being sick and tired before change happens.
At what point do you stop trying to help somebody that, like, okay, so for instance, I have friends, I see unlimited potential within them, and they are unwilling to change. At what point do you stop spending so much energy reaching your hand out trying to pull them with you?
So you're trying to control the output.
Yeah, I guess.
Right. So you want it more than they do. Now, what I love about your heart, and you have a coach's heart, and a lot of coaches are like this, and a lot of people are like this. They see potential in someone, and they see it so much that the other person doesn't see it. They're like, man, just open your eyes.
Yeah.
Like, you could be so much more.
Yep.
But there has to be a true desire in the person to want change. I always say it this way. You can't be the ER nurse on top of the gurney trying to resuscitate someone back to life that doesn't want to come back to life. Think about that visual. You see the nurse straddling the guy, pumping the chest, pump, 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 trying to get this person to come back, like everybody. They're shooting them up, and the person's on the table, like, nah, I'm cool. I'm ready to check out. Like the nurse, the staff, the hospital wants it more than the victim, than the patient. We can't be that way. I mean, the patient has to say, man, I'm ready to change. Okay, I can help you.
Yeah.
Because it just won't work because the subconscious pull is so deep.
That's so crazy. I watched something the other day, and it was about him and his son. It was Mike Tyson.
Okay.
Mike Tyson's adopted father, I guess. He said, I guess he was in some kind of life-threatening incident. He said, "I will not die until I watch you become successful." And he said the only reason that he was alive was the absolute want to watch Mike become successful in his career.
100%.
So crazy.
So there are stories upon stories in which the placebo people have been giving placebos. They've been given the real medicines and told that they're going to, cure the thing. And the people given the placebo come back healed, better, because they believed. Our brain is powerful. I heard this. Our brain is the strongest pharmacological operation in the universe. Like our brains can produce the chemicals that we need to heal us. We just have to be in tune with doing that. And that takes work. And that takes belief that it can actually happen. Keep this in mind, Robert. 98% of our life is run subconsciously. That's how powerful the subconscious is. Like
we're not even knowing what we're doing. We're just subconsciously making.
Just our life is just subconscious. Like the 1 or 2%, 3% that we're, like, hey, you and I are talking, we're filming here. We had In-N-Out Burger earlier, right?
Yeah.
That's the conscious, thinking part. But think about all the things, if you step back for a second, subconsciously that's happening, like all the systems in your body, just what you do subconsciously. So that's where our belief systems live, in that subconscious, and that's where they're rooted, and that's where you have to root them out.
How do you think culture falls into this?
When you say culture, define culture. Are we talking business culture? Or are we talking culture at large?
I would say like personal culture within your life.
Okay, so that's environment. Our environment plays a huge factor in how we show up in the world, how we treat each other, how we view money, our spirituality, our education, our reading patterns. Just think about all the things that a 2 to 7 year old experiences, in that time, and they're impacted. So environment matters. Here's the thing, though. It's not final. And some folks say, well, in my DNA, and I've got bad genes, and that's a whole nother conversation that, can be had. But ultimately, we can change where we're at.
Yeah.
We can change. It's not easy all the time, but it's a decision. Either you're going to stay a victim and live in that victim mentality, or you're going to shift gears. You're going to be a victor, and you're going to work on changing the things that you need.
That's 2 days in a row.
That's
crazy. Victim to victor.
Yeah, I mean, it's 100%. And I see it all the time. And here's what's interesting is that when you're working on yourself, you begin to become aware of like roadblocks that other people have. And you hear it in their language, because our language says a lot about us. I can't do that. Or you start hearing tones of like, I'm always treated this way, or no one loves me, or someone's always picking on me. You become very attuned to that. And they're seeing life through that belief system. And that belief system is the lenses. It's like I'm wearing glasses. That's my belief system. I'm seeing life through my belief system, and that's how I view it, and that impacts us.
So what would your recommendation be to somebody that does want that change, but it's hard for them to get out of said environment?
So you could still be in an environment and not be impacted by the environment. Now, as a younger person, that's harder, right? But again, once you become aware of the negativity, even some of the abuse, I think if you're aware, you can say, okay, this isn't me. I'm not going to be a product of my environment. I'm living with folks that are angry, that are abusive. I'll find a way to get out of that environment.
And then subconsciously, you'll just do it, right?
Well, if the drive and the goal is deep enough, strong enough, you'll find a way. Now, this isn't victim blaming. So there are folks that are dealing with major traumas that are in major situations that are almost impossible to get out of.
Right.
But in general, if we make that decision, because you've heard heroic stories of people. How about the piano player that got caught in a boulder, cut his arm off because he was going to survive?
That's crazy.
I mean, so there are stories of people who can overcome for sure. But our brain has to be saying, hey, we can do this. And what are we putting into our brain? If I'm living on this negativity, junk food, my brain doesn't have the fuel to survive. It's going to produce junky thoughts, feeling terrible. I have to fuel myself up with the right things, with the positive things. Now, listen, just saying positive words, yeah, that might help a little bit. But I'm a firm believer in visualizing, writing affirmations, journaling, gratitude. Studies have shown scientifically gratitude, PTSD folks, just by simply keeping a gratitude journal, rewires their brain. Because neurologically, it's rewiring, and it changes the brain.
You know, every day I wake up, and the very first thing I do is just thank you for another day.
Nice.
So crazy. And it's so impactful how much it changes my day. Because I'll catch myself. Some days I wake up, and I just forget to even think about it, to be honest with you.
Right.
And you could really see a difference in those days.
Well, you set the day. It's like if you wake up late, like you feel like you're running behind. That's why a morning routine, as best you can, getting up at the same time, doing the same things, getting on clockwork, is going to help you be more productive.
I tried the whole time blocking thing. Didn't work for me.
Yeah, I mean, that's just a belief.
Okay, that's fair. Maybe it was just too uncomfortable for me at the time. And that's what, okay, you know what, I'm going to shut the fuck.
No, so let's just go there for a second.
All right.
Let's just do a mini coaching session here.
Okay.
So it comes down to, in that time blocking, what's the goal? And if the goal is to be productive, build a business, build a life that you want, when that becomes powerful enough, you'll time block. You'll figure out ways to get work done.
It always seems that, every time I time block, there's always something else interrupting that time.
Yeah. So when you say always, I call BS on that.
Not always. So, I believe, and the way I see it, is it seems to me that majority of the time that I had spent in the time that I had blocked, things kept coming in that I had to tend to because of a priority level that I set certain things to.
Sure. Now, could it be that because you're not necessarily loving the time blocking, that you're finding things that are being amplified that you have to deal with that could have been dealt with in 45 minutes?
That's a possibility.
And there are legit things that happen because you're in a business where things just happen.
Yeah.
Right. But we've been hanging out the last 3 hours, and there's not been one emergency.
Nope.
Is that coincidence or?
Today's been a much calmer day.
Okay. I'm in town, and it's the anomaly.
Yeah. Well,
okay.
I don't know.
But my point is this, right? Yes, you're going to have things that pop up. And I just want to make sure, like, your priorities are right. Like, level 1, level 2, DEFCON 1, DEFCON 5. Like, okay, get me for this. I'm out of pocket for 45 minutes, 1 hour. Because if you could focus for an hour or 90 minutes with a small breaker in between, you could crush some work. But when you're constantly distracted, it takes, try to remember the stats here, but it takes, when you're distracted for something that you're doing, it takes almost 10 minutes, 12 minutes to get back into that workflow that you're interrupted from.
How do you do your time blocking? Is it because I mean I know you're super busy all day long. You're busy. Is it one after the other after the other after the other,
Well,
or
I
do
have
you?
to. So this, I'm going to be fully transparent. I can't sit here and not. I don't time block well
No.
because I'm with you. Now, for my clients and coaching clients, yes. Like everything is on my calendar. I make pockets of time to work. For the business owners and CEOs that I work with, because I'm already blocking tons and tons of time, I encourage them to block off small blocks of time to work on their business. And so for me, that's typically Monday mornings and Friday mornings.
Right.
Those are my blocks of time that I work on my non-coaching, because when I'm coaching, I'm coaching, like I'm present. I can't be building my business, working on speaking gigs, whatever that is. So those Mondays and Fridays are my morning. Those mornings are my time. But you have to get everything on your calendar.
How often do those times get interrupted, though?
Probably as much as I let them. I can say very rarely. And again, now I don't have guys that are out on the street working on the job. So I can just say I had my son that was in a minor car accident 3 weeks ago while I was on a call. So I try not to pay attention to my phone while I'm on my calls, because I want to be present and I don't want to be distracted. But I somehow flipped it and I saw my wife had texted me, and she's like, "Cody's trying to get a hold of you. He was in an accident." So I just put the call on hold and called Cody, and he's like, "I'm all cool. That's fine." But if there's an emergency, every single time you time block every day, like we got to figure out what's causing the emergencies.
I wouldn't say it's an emergency. I would just say other things popping up. You know what? Honestly, it's probably just me because I'm horrible with. It's like ADD, dude. Like I'll be focusing on one thing and something will come in and I'll have to focus on that. I can't finish what I'm doing and then focus on that.
Okay, fair enough.
So I don't know.
I would consider
That's a big struggle I got.
Pomodoro timer. That's 20 minutes on, 2 minutes off, or 3 minutes off, and then 20 minutes on. You do that 4 or 5 times and take a 15-minute break. Get yourself a timer and stay locked in. Stay locked in for 30 minutes. We went down a different road on time management, didn't we?
Yeah, we did. No, I'm going to have to do that. Well, I mean, I appreciate the help. So we talked a little bit about, imposter syndrome. I got a little personal coaching call, going on here, but I think you have a really powerful mindset, man. I mean, you've helped me so much adapt a new mindset and create new culture inside of my company, which has been very hard. I appreciate you. I appreciate you jumping on, and I appreciate the time, but I know you got a lot of stuff to do. So, yeah, until next time, man.
Thanks for having me on this amazing podcast. Always a pleasure, Robert. You and Sierra are rock stars. Love y'all.
Thanks, Matt.